Welcome to the podcast about interesting, everyday people. I'm Daniel Lance.
I'm Paul Gilman, and this is Pod 1.
Jamie Malaugh is a Northern Irishman from England who, in a serious culture change, ended up moving to Alabama as a teenager. He realized he was pretty good at math from a young age and ended up getting his undergrad, master's, and PhD in mathematics from the University of Alabama at Birmingham by the remarkable young age of 24. This episode we talk about all of that, as well as his family and his love for both rugby and American football. So here's Jamie Malaugh. Jamie Malaugh, correct?
There you go. Yeah.
Welcome to Pod 1.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
He did say it correctly?
Malaugh, yes.
Malaugh. All right, so let's have a little fun with how your name has been mispronounced over time. Can you give us the first 4 or 5 most common?
Most common would be Malaugh. It's like people start the second syllable and then just give up.
They're afraid.
You know?
They're afraid. They don't know what to do with the A-U-G-H.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, but then you do get Malaugh, and it's like really, Malaugh, and that's usually the most common ones. Yeah.
Malaugh. I hadn't contemplated that one.
Yeah.
That's good
Yeah,
touch.
I kind of went, I feel like sometimes Irish people say like the H sound, so I just went with Malaugh because of Gaelic, but then you corrected me, it's Malaugh.
Or you get Malaugh. Malaugh is one as well.
Malaugh.
Say it quick. Malaugh, yeah.
What part of the world would you say your last name that way?
I don't know.
They're just trying to get it over with.
And I mispronounced it just a few minutes ago, and I said Mulloch.
Mulloch, yeah.
It's not. It's close, but it's Malaugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
There
right.
you
Nice. All right. So now that we've established that, you are in fact from or born in Northern Ireland, right?
I was, yes. I was born in a small town called Lisburn. Not really small. For Northern Ireland, it's not small, but you might consider it small here. I just tell people I'm from Belfast because people actually know where Belfast is. Lisburn's about 3 miles west of Belfast.
Oh, wow.
It's not very far.
But it is a town.
It is a town.
Yeah. And how long did you live there?
I think it was less than a year. So, like, my parents were super young at the time. They were, like, my dad had just turned, they were both 18. My dad had just turned 18.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
He was actually in Cambridge University at the time, so he was over in England. Actually, he's told me this story. My dad, if you want to ever get my dad on here, it's like, he will tell you embellished stories all day.
I love it.
Let's go.
But the one he told me of the night I was born was he was at Cambridge, and I don't know if it's still this way, but back in the day, like, you had to be a certain level of student to walk on the grass. Like, right? It's like
that's very British.
Yeah, it's like reserved for professors and alumni and people of certain stature.
Hey, idiot, get off the grass.
Right.
So were there paths around the grass that other people had to take?
Yeah, it's like courtyards basically
Okay.
between buildings, and there's pathways around. And they might, I don't know if they have the crisscross. It's been a long time since I've been there. But so on the night I was born, it was snowing apparently. So he says he went out in the snow and he wrote in the snow, "It's a boy." And they got really pissed at him apparently in the summer or whatever. The grass died. No.
And he wasn't supposed to be messing with the grass. Is that
No. I mean, he wasn't supposed to be on it for first, but then
they-
going and writing things in the snow, they frowned upon apparently.
That caused the grass to die?
Do you understand how he wrote? It's a boy.
Never mind.
There it
He
is.
probably
Say less.
He probably made the bit up out the grass dying out, but
He probably never even went back to that spot. Right?
Yeah.
But you consider yourself an Irishman.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And but you moved as a baby to England.
Yeah. So, well, it was still the 70s at the time, late 70s, but it was still height of the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and I think a couple of reasons. I think my parents wanted to not grow up in that environment, but they also were both going to university, and my dad actually left Cambridge, went to University of Edinburgh. My mom also went to a college or university up there. I'm not sure which one. So we moved to Edinburgh when I was like 1.
Okay. And you're saying mom, not mom.
Mom,
Because a
yeah.
proper British person would say mom.
With a U.
Yes.
Could you give us a quick crash course on the Troubles?
The Troubles. Yeah, so it goes back hundreds of years. And to be, I don't know as much Irish history as I should, if I'm being honest. But
You know more than Daniel and me. Yes.
but the English came over hundreds of years ago, and basically enforced in servitude for a lot of Irishmen. They were forced to force most people to work in workhouses for very low wages while they took all the land. So they took everybody's land. Only the rich English aristocracy could own it, at least to my knowledge. I'm sure that someone watching your listening to your podcast might know more of this history than I do.
This sounds right.
But,
yeah.
Yeah, and that's when potato famine happened, etc. People didn't have food, and there's a big, eventually kicked the English out, early 1900s, I believe, and got back the, five of the six counties.
Of what is now Northern Ireland?
Yeah, well, everything but Northern Ireland. So,
got it.
So you got Ulster in the north, which is weird because they got 4 provinces and 6 counties, and the provinces are kind of never really figured out, how that happened. So Ulster people assimilate. Well, no, that's not the right word, but they think of Ulster as Northern Ireland. Ulster is actually a little bit different than Northern Ireland, but anyway, yeah. So,
but there's basically a long history of England trying to subjugate Ireland, and then Ireland, or most of Ireland, becoming independent, and then Northern Ireland was left behind. And then what were the context of the Troubles when your parents were worried and wanted to move?
Yeah, well, it got really bad in the 70s. I think it'd been going on for decades, but it really started to rear its ugly head. And that's when you just started to get, Southern paramilitaries, mainly the IRA, saying, we want our country back, right? So we're going to do that. And, it led to, bombings and stuff, and retaliatory attacks by Protestant paramilitaries in the north, like UDF, UVF, Ulster Defence Force, Ulster Volunteer Force. There's loads of them, and it just was tit for tat, like a lot of killings that went back and forth, and so it just wasn't. When I was young, it was normal to you fly into the airport, and there'd be armed, not police officers, like army with, machine guns and automatic rifles and, all over the place, heavy police presence as well. And then when you go around Belfast, you'd always see army vehicles and checkpoints and, people checking under the cars for bombs. That was just a normal part of life. This was still 80s at the time, because I was young. And it just, the 70s was just bad. It came to a head. And then I think it was in the 80s where IRA started to take their actions into the mainland. They started to, start bombing places in England because it wasn't working what they were doing in Northern Ireland. And
even a couple of years ago when we were over in London, there were public trash cans there, and they weren't contained by metal containers. They were flapping plastic in the breeze because there could be a bomb just placed in a trash can, and if it's plastic like that, you can detect it pretty quickly, but if it's encased in metal or plastic, you can't see it. And so even in London town 2 years ago, it was like that.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. So it sounds like there was a rightful claim from the Irish for Northern Ireland, and also obviously the English or the British believed that they had a rightful claim, but there was also some religious undertones to the conflict, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I glazed over that part. I didn't even mention it, but that's how it's normally divided along lines of Catholics and Protestants. So I think the history was when England retreated out of the large part of Ireland, the loyalists, as they're still called loyalists today, who wanted to remain with the crown, they basically all migrated to the north and say, well, we'll that's where we'll stay.
Yeah.
And the reason it's along religious lines is just historically, Queen or King being Catholic or Protestant was a big deal,
right.
Even in England. There came a point where they didn't really like having Catholic monarchs, right? I think it's Mary, Queen of Scots, was murdered for that.
Yeah.
And so there's just.
A little closer to you.
Oh,
yeah, you're good.
And that was believed to be why the Irish believed that the English wanted to subjugate them because they were Catholic and England was heavily Protestant at that time.
Essentially Anglican, right?
Right. Yeah. and so that persisted. When I was growing up, almost everyone in the South was Catholic, as far as I know. I didn't really know many Protestants in the South, but in the North, it was, a split, but it was mainly Protestant.
Yeah.
And it led to things like, my dad and granddad would tell me when they growing up, like you couldn't get work, like couldn't get jobs or couldn't get in unions unless you were Protestant. A lot of Catholic people were turned away from dock work. Belfast is one of the biggest things they had was the docks there. Right,
right.
The Titanic was built there, and a lot of shipbuilding.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. There's a bit huge Titanic museum there. Because that's where it was. That was where it was built. They got these massive cranes called David and Goliath that they bring all the shipping containers in off.
That's cool.
How would you identify, or like, it's kind of hard to tell just by looking at somebody if they're Protestant or Catholic.
Yeah. No, you couldn't do that. No.
So what would be? How would they know? Would they just know like, based on the people you hang with?
Yeah,
Or your last name, maybe.
Yeah. Last names are good. They'd ask like if you. That's when he was growing up. You'd be on the bus going home, and you'd walking home. A group of kids would stop you. They'd flat out ask you. You refuse to answer, they'd beat you up. And if you answered the wrong answer, they'd beat you up. So
yeah, you had a pretty low chance of not being beaten up.
Who?
Yeah, if you didn't answer or you gave the wrong answer, it's better than 50% chance you're going to be beaten up.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. So
very cool. So your parents decided, all right, maybe not. We're not about that noise. Let's go to England. And your dad had already been in school. Were you their first child?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have a younger brother who just turned, I think he was 36 the other day. And then I have a sister who's, I don't know, she's really young. Not being compared to me. She's like, I think she's 24, 25. She might be 26. She's just a few years older than my oldest.
Okay.
So how old are you, Jamie?
41.
I wasn't going to ask.
Yeah. It's funny. We're going to get to the math part of Jamie's life, but Jamie hesitates sharing these ages, which is funny because the math is too simple.
Yeah, the ages change all the time. It's hard to remember.
They do change every 365 or every 366 days. Yeah,
we have computers for that stuff now. So what was so England? I'm guessing is where like most of your childhood memories were. What was that like?
That's true. Well, remember we went to Edinburgh first. So I was there for about 4 years. Then moved to north of England for another couple of years, and then south of England and Sussex. I was there for about 7 years. So I don't remember a ton about Edinburgh, to be honest. Weirdly, I do remember my second birthday party there. And,
no
and the
way.
cake, I had this orange kind of cake. And
second birthday party?
Yeah.
So the color of it, back to Northern Ireland real quickly, orange is Protestant?
Oh, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're surprised I was given an orange cake for my birthday?
Yes. Yeah.
There's only oranges on top. I don't know if it was actually colored orange. That might have been a bit much.
Got it. That's funny. So you lived in every part of the UK except for Ireland and Wales.
Wales, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Cool.
There's a song, it's a traditional song called The Flowers of Edinburgh. It's an Irish fiddle tune.
You're throwing the hard G in Edinburgh.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Edinburgh.
Oh, how do you say? Just Edinburgh without?
Yeah, Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
Don't let Malaugh throw you off.
All right, I'm just going to say it. But so it's an Irish fiddle tune, and it's a really nice tune. And I learned after like 6 months after first hearing about it that the flowers of Edinburgh were actually a reference to how terrible the city smelled. And I know that you were very, very young, but I don't know if...
Maybe that's what he remembers. Maybe that's what triggers the memory.
Yeah, and maybe it was also an artifact of times gone by. Like the city may have used to smell really foul because of people like throwing their feces in the street or something like that.
Maybe 400 years ago.
You don't think that's happening in Edinburgh any day?
Not in his lifetime, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that bit I don't remember.
Okay.
No, the only bits I remember were the cake, and then there was one other time where actually went on TV when I was young. So they were interviewing my mom and dad. They went up in Edinburgh Castle. There's like big cannon up there, and we did this interview. I just remember I was playing on the cannon, but they were interviewing them because they were like 19, 20-year-old college student going to university and having a kid, and that's why they were interviewing them. Those are the bits I remember. Oh, and the other bit I remember is my bedroom was literally basically a hallway closet that you would put coats in. Like I didn't have a bedroom, so I had a cot that was set up literally in the closet.
Because your parents were students. They didn't have a
Right.
ton of money.
No,
Yeah.
none at all.
So how would you spend your time as a when you were in England after you left Edinburgh? How would you after school? What would you do?
Growing up in England, both my parents worked, so I was home alone. In fact, they let these days you get thrown in jail for this, but
I love it. I love it when the preface is what you just said.
but I would walk to school on my own from 4 in England. Right,
That's unheard of.
Yeah, my parents didn't know any better. You just walk through the neighborhood. There was a road there was one major road, but it had a crossing light. It's not the same as a traffic light, but it's something that was relatively safe. And they gave me 2p every day, and there was a little shop on the way home from the school.
2p is
2 pence, 2 pennies.
All right, got it.
And you could buy a couple of little pieces of candy at the store, and so I'd do that every day and walk home. And that went on for a certain time, and then at some point, some parent called the school and complained
About you being too young by yourself.
Yeah, and so the school called and you can't have him walk to school anymore. So
They were 18, 19-year-old students. What did they do?
right,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, they were 22 at this time, but they were.
They were worried about their books, not maybe their son walking home from school.
That wasn't like an average. It wasn't average to see 4-year-olds walking up the street to go to school. You would say?
No, not even back then. But I guess probably not too many years before that.
I think that may have been the early beginnings of your status as kind of a child savant genius.
Figured out how to walk.
Walking to school on your own as a 4-year-old, dodging traffic.
Maybe without that sort of mindset from your parents, maybe you never became a math guy. Who knows?
Who knows?
I don't know what that connection is.
Yeah,
that was weird.
But 4 years in Edinburgh.
Do you keep throwing the G in there?
Yeah, like burger.
Yeah, but it's Edinburgh. It's almost like you put the R early in the syllable.
You're cold, like Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Burr, yeah.
I'll take that.
Like Aaron Burr.
Because I think like Hamburg, the strong, burger G.
Yeah.
All right, so back to when you were in England from age 5-ish to 12-ish, what would you do after school?
Well, back then my mom didn't work, so I remember going home and watching TV with her. My dad actually at the time he was on a road crew, like a grader crew, going out doing road work and
Had to make money somehow, right?
Right. Yeah. And so I'd hang out with my mom. Though I know when I later on when I moved to the south of England, my mom did work, and then I was pretty much so after school was a combination of either sports or just going home and watching TV. But I played a lot of sports as a kid. I played football, soccer, rugby, judo, boxing, tennis.
Oh, judo.
Nice.
And boxing. So let's explore a couple of those. And before we explore any of those, what's that weird sport you were telling me about a year ago?
The Irish one?
Yes.
Gaelic, hurling.
Hurling.
Yeah.
Can you describe hurling for our listening audience?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a mix between field hockey and lacrosse, except you don't wear there's no pads, no helmets, and the ball is whizzing around at head height. It's like a little smaller than a cricket. It's kind of like a baseball, I guess.
Okay.
And just, it's a lot of people just go around whacking with sticks. I've never actually played the game myself. I've seen
It looks crazy.
Yeah, right.
All right, we don't Google typically, but we'll Google after we record.
Hurling.
Yeah.
Okay. And is it
Go ahead.
is it encouraged or allowed to just whack people?
From what I've seen, yes. Especially if they have the ball. If you have the ball, you better expect to get whacked.
You're going to get whacked if you
Right.
hold on to it for very long.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, it might be against. I don't know the rules, to be honest. It might be illegal just to go body shot, but I think if you're carrying, you have to run down the field with a ball balanced on your stick, and you have to.
It's almost like a egg in a spoon.
Right,
walk.
but you have to kind of bounce it. I think it's almost there's rules like
Like dribbling.
and if you're doing that, I think people can just come in and take hacks.
The Irish form of dribbling, yes.
Right.
But-
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just upside down.
Yeah. Or maybe right side up.
Yeah.
Depends on your perspective. All right, so you rattle off a few sports there. We're not going to touch soccer because that feels very international, and that's maybe not as interesting as judo and boxing. How old were you when you boxed and did judo?
About 10, 11, 12.
Is boxing like a pretty big thing in England?
It was still pretty big then. You'd have some gyms. It wasn't massive. It would probably be bigger in Ireland, I would think. It's more. It seems to be more boxers. Well, maybe not. Maybe for per capita, there's more boxers that come out of Ireland. But
Did you get knocked out more than you knocked guys out?
you see, I never got to the point where I was actually doing proper fight. They wouldn't let you fight till 11, and I started early. And then at some point, before I got in my first real fight, I did start to play a lot more football, and it just took up too much time.
And when you say football, you mean
Soccer. Yeah.
which is hilarious because you're a big American football guy.
I am a big
We'll get to that eventually. Yeah.
Wow. So boxing, they let 11-year-olds
Just go at
get
it.
in and just cage fight.
Yeah.
And so, first time you got punched in the face hard, were you like, I like this and I want to hit you in the face hard, or were you like, this is stupid, I don't know what I'm doing here?
It was fine. I mean, you're doing sparring, so it's like very little. You're up, but you do have your defense up. They're never just like you're never just taking a full whack in the face. You might feel it on the glove and into your face, but you're not just taking a whack.
So you didn't get like a severe hook to the jaw that knocked you out.
No. I'm more likely to get that in schoolyard fights.
Nice.
Oh, were there any schoolyard fights?
A few growing up, yeah.
Did you win most of those?
Oh yeah.
Well, because you were bigger or tougher or both?
I think I mean, probably because I wasn't that big. I'm bigger now than I was then. Later, I was probably normal size, but I had massive legs from playing football and rugby.
Okay.
And I was fairly athletic playing all those sports, so I think it was just balance and.
Did
speed.
you want people to try to take you on?
No. I never started fights.
But once somebody started it, you're
yeah.
like, I guess I'm going to finish it.
Right? Yeah, that's the.
And how would it finish typically? They would whimper home, or
Probably a teacher. It was a school, so it's probably a teacher break it up. Or you just I think some of them is just you get tired of this is silly. Like you're just like you better stop doing
You're
this.
just running out of energy.
Right.
and this is an all boys school.
One of them was a boys' school. One was at what we'd say an elementary school. It was mixed. It was a Catholic school. So.
Okay.
So which sport would kind of became one of your favorites?
Rugby and soccer were my two favorites.
You're saying soccer now.
Yeah, because just for clarity,
You've assimilated.
so Paul doesn't have to correct me every time I say football.
So and with rugby, there are two forms. There's like the rugby with a lot of players on each side, and then there's sevens, right?
Yeah, well, there's sevens, which is a crazy game. Like you have to be insanely fit to play that game.
Is it because there's like no subbing? You just are on.
Right, and it's so much space. That's like it's just a lot of running. You got to cover a lot of ground. There's no one to really cover up a mistake, and so you're out on an island. But not only is there full 15 aside and 7 aside, there's also rugby league and rugby union, which are different rules.
How are the rules different?
So rugby union is probably the stuff you see more on the TV here. If you ever watch Six Nations or any of the English league teams, it's mostly rugby union. But rugby league, back when I was young, that was seen as the professional league, the ones that people got paid money to do. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's that way anymore. But rugby league is basically, it's almost like it's more closer to American football in that you're allowed to you can get tackled 6 times. When you get tackled, have you ever seen rugby union? Like when you get tackled, everyone's falling on the ball and like trying to win the ball on the ground. In rugby league, when you're tackled, there isn't any of that. It's like you get up, you put the ball under your leg, almost like a snap, except you're.
That's the one I've seen more.
Then you go again, and then but you get 6 tackles, and on your 6th one, they usually end up kicking like a punt because it's like, well, if we get tackled here, they get the ball, so we're gonna kick it away. Mm-hmm. I always played rugby union though. It's the
dog pile one.
Yeah, it's the traditional game.
Giant scrums, essentially.
Yeah, scrums and mauls and rucks and.
I don't know what any of those words mean.
Scrums when you see them like get in formation and then bend down and push like that.
Yeah.
Like a maul is when you're standing up and they haven't tackled the carrier to the ground, but a bunch of them just get around and like run around. And then a ruck is when they've been tackled to the ground and everyone is forming. And there's a lot of rules around how you can legally form a ruck and how you can't. They didn't really teach us all those as young, but I've picked them up as I've watched TV over the time. But yeah, those are the 3 differences. So.
Were you ever one of the guys that sometimes they lift someone up really high when they throw it in from out of bounds?
No, because I was a back because I was big and quick. So I played fly half. I also kicked. So fly half is generally the kicker of the team.
Is it like a more defensive role?
No, not really. It's almost
Like midfield in soccer?
yeah. It's kind of like you're the first person to get the ball out of the scrum or the ruck, right? And so you decide whether am I going to kick, am I going to pass down the line, what are we going to do here?
Yeah, I love watching it when they have that line going up, and
The line outs where
they just continually pass the ball. Like they pass and then they get bodied by somebody, and then the other person passes right before they get trucked by, and it just kind of goes down the line.
Right, they're very quick on the offload.
It's incredible.
Yeah, when they get trucked like that, it's almost like 7 really good American football plays. But in American football, it takes like 30 minutes to get those. You get that in like 12 seconds.
Yeah. And it's similar to American football as well in that all it takes is like one defender to not be there or one like slip on the offense,
Right, and you're done.
and it's over. Yeah, it's very cool in that it's the weakest link type of sport.
And it's nonstop, which makes it a lot better than a sport like baseball or American football.
Oh wow, okay.
I think so. Continuous sports are always better.
Yeah, I'm really happy since I started putting it more on TV here. Can watch Ireland play a lot more the last couple of years than I ever have been able to.
Well, I mean, there are a million channels.
Right.
And ESPN covers like things that aren't even sports anymore. So those 2 forms of rugby, how do we think about those 2 versus, say, Australian rules football?
Australian rules. Yeah. Australian rules is a little bit like Gaelic football, actually, which is weird. Like they use an American football shaped ball. But they also have rules that when they're running, they have to bounce the ball, or kick it. You can't just run. Like rugby, you can hold the ball and run. Gaelic is also like Gaelic's played with a soccer ball, and you can run up and down the field, but you have to either bounce it or like juggle it on your foot. So Australian
you have to
rules
drop
is
it
like
and kick it back up to your hands.
Right. Yeah. So Australian rules is a little bit like that. I think they just bounce it. I don't know if they kick it in Australian rules because it's hard to kick a oval. It's much harder to get that to come back to you. So, but they bounce it, and it's almost so similar to Gaelic because in Gaelic you can either score in a soccer goal, or it has like posts up at the side of the soccer goal. So
Why is that not popular in America? That sounds amazing.
Right. So you can either score a goal for 6 points, or you can just kick it through the uprights for 1, which is significantly easier because you can do it from almost anywhere at least in the opponent's half.
Right.
And Australian rules is like that too. They don't have any goals, but they have I think they got 4 poles, and you kick it through the middle, you get more points than you kick it on the side.
So if you're going for the middle and you miss, you still get some points, but not the maximum.
Right.
All right, nice. So how old were you when you left England?
13.
You were 13, and your dad got a job in America.
Yeah.
And so you leave proper Britain. You leave Great Britain. You've basically lived in a few places in Britain, and you're going to America, and I would guess the family's headed to New York, L.A., Chicago maybe.
Right.
Maybe if you're getting crazy, you're headed to Miami. But you end up in Alabama.
Right.
How did y'all end up in Alabama? And by the way, that had to be amazing culture shock.
Oh, absolutely was. No, you're absolutely right. Those are the towns you would think you would head to. But if we back up a bit, the reason we went to America is we got our green cards in the lottery. So I don't know if they still do this, but there's a green card lottery at the time. They're giving away hundreds of thousands of green cards in a literal lottery. But back then, I don't know if they do it now either, but based on your country of origin, there more visas would go to. So Irish people had a massive lot in this lottery.
And these are visas for America.
Yeah. And they're not just visas, they're green cards. Like you can come here, come here and live, which, right.
And was that a thing? People really wanted to come to America?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's land of the free and opportunity, right? It's in the
they didn't tell you guys about Alabama though. I hate Alabama football. That's why I said that. Yeah.
But to get in that, I think if I remember right, my parents, obviously, Northern Ireland, they actually had British passports at the time. And I don't know if they went and got Irish passports just to apply for the lottery, so they had higher odds.
Yeah.
Or if the just lottery considered them Irish from where they're born. Because I don't know if the Good Friday Peace Accord had happened by that point. Because by that point, Ireland considered
do that.
Ireland considered anyone born in the North as an Irish citizen, which hadn't been done before. Anyway, so came here, and we were actually initially, Dad was looking for work in Florida, because I actually had an aunt that lived in Miami. So we were thinking about Miami. It wasn't it was mainly because we had family there.
Right.
And Miami had been the only place I'd visited in the U.S. before I came. But he was looking for jobs down there, and she found a company that, they had a good interview. They liked him, but they basically said, look, we don't really have what you want to do down here, but we've got what you want to do up in our headquarters in Huntsville, Alabama. My dad here is Huntsville, Alabama, and he says, well, I'm not going to Hicksville, Alabama.
Even he knew.
Yeah. And he's like, and they're like, no, it's not that bad. It's like, I know right now Huntsville is like, this big aerospace defense town, which I keep hearing. Well, the stat is that the highest concentration of PhDs are in the country.
Sounds right.
And they're like, no, it's not all that bad. It's a nice progressive city. We'll fly you up here. You can interview. And so my dad's like, okay.
Progressive if you never go north of, say, South Carolina.
Right. Yeah. He's like, okay, we'll fly up there. And so he went up there. He liked it. Gave him a job. Found out I was moving to Alabama. So I had to pull out my atlas at the time. We didn't have Google Maps or anything.
What are you laughing at?
Having to pull out the app?
Right.
I get it. Okay.
Yeah, there was nothing digital to go after.
Although they're right next to each other geographically, they occupy very different spaces in my mind, Alabama and Florida.
Right.
Had you heard of Alabama at all when you found out you were moving there?
And I think songs,
Like rock songs? Like Sweet Home Alabama?
Oh, yeah. Classic.
Yeah, no, well, I don't know. I think the reason I say that is when we actually left, when the day we were leaving to come to America, we were staying at my aunt's house, and she was living in Chelmsford, which is east of London. It was close to, I think it was it was either Luton or Stansted Airport we flew out of, and she was close. So we were staying with her, and the evening before, my granny and granddad came over from Northern Ireland as a surprise. We didn't know they were coming.
Right.
So they just came to see us before we left, and my granddad came in with the banjo and was singing, I'm off to Alabama with the banjo on my knee.
No way.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Did he actually play? Or
Oh, yeah, he did.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Was it tenor banjo?
Oh, that I don't know.
Okay.
What is a tenor banjo versus like a regular banjo?
So the 5-string banjo that you hear in country music a lot is the American kind of banjo. The 4-string is the one that you find a lot more in traditional Irish music. And it's only got 4 strings, and it has a different kind of twang to it.
It's probably a tenor banjo, sounds like, yeah.
Yeah, it's really common, but you could definitely, you could play that song with either one.
Is Granddad still around?
No, granddad died 2009.
He sounds like a cool cat.
Yeah, he was a cool cat.
Yeah.
The stories that my dad tells me about him are he was a union boss in Northern Ireland.
Tell us a story about Granddad.
I don't know if I know that many, other than I got clipped around the ear a lot when growing up.
What does that mean, clipped around the ear?
Just smacks.
By Granddad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, all I know is, the stories I hear about my granddad, there's two that step out, and they're both related to the Troubles, unfortunately. One was, back when the Troubles really started getting heavy, my dad's side of the family lived on an integrated road and neighborhood in Belfast.
Integrated meaning Protestant Catholic.
Yeah, because it hadn't really got to the point where people were separating out, at least heavily. And when the Troubles came up, they started to send out. They basically were kicking Catholics out of their home and telling them you got to go somewhere else. And this started happening in this neighborhood. And the way my dad tells it, like one night they sent around like paramilitaries, which are civilian paramilitaries,
Right.
I think might have been the Tartan Army is what they called them. And the thing is, my granddad actually knew some of these people. Like they'd been living together for years.
They were at least
friends,
neighbors,
right? And one of them
friends,
came
yeah.
up and said, like Vincent, that's my granddad's name. He's like, you got to get out. They're going to come get you. He's like, I'm not fucking leaving.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, you're good. You're fine. F-bombs are fine here.
Okay. And I don't know all the details, but they did come one night on the door of a bunch of them and barricaded the door, and they said, "Look, you got to get out." And there's like 4 or 5 of them, and apparently, after some back and forth, my granddad said, "Look, if you guys insist on coming in here, you can, but I guarantee you, I'm gonna fucking kill 1 or 2 of you before the rest of you get me.
Yeah.
So you can either fuck off now and come back later, or come in." And they left, but they did end up having to leave. I mean, it was they had my dad was one of 6 kids. They were all still relatively young at the time.
Right.
It wasn't really an option that avoided violence anyway.
Yeah.
So,
But your granddad sounds like a badass.
Yeah.
yeah, so I remember him. He was pretty badass.
That's cool. It's cool to have a granddad that's a badass. It's not cool that the Protestants were kicking the Catholics out of that neighborhood. What's also not cool is the fact that Daniel's wearing a bright orange hat.
Yeah, I know. You've got the green one on. It's like,
I'm with you, Jamie.
right.
Wait a second.
But I can't. It's hard to completely hate orange just because it's also in our flag. So
That's what I was
even
gonna-
though
That's a
it's
good
like-
point.
but
That's a good point.
Does that have to do with the Protestant?
I think it does historically.
Okay.
Well,
It's a great
orange and all
flag.
that, so
All right, so you're at the airport. Granddad's playing on the tenor banjo. You guys, the next morning or next day, are headed to Alabama, right?
yeah.
All right, so tell us about landing in Alabama and what those first few days and weeks were like.
Well, we initially, so when my mom and I first came over, we actually went to Orlando just because we came over before my dad. He was still cleaning, like tying up some loose ends.
Right.
And I think my first thing with American culture that really shocked me was, we were at the airport and we had all these bags, like 13, 14 bags.
You were moving, yeah.
Right. And it's like a porter comes up and like, "Oh, let me get your bags." And like, didn't know what a porter was. Never, "Oh, what the hell is this?" Like, and so this guy moves our bags. We get up to the checkout, and actually, no, this time my dad was with me. So this might have been the second time we were over.
Yeah.
And the guy was just standing there, like, and he said to my mom or dad, like, "Oh, what about the tip?" And they were like, and so like Jamie paid the man, and so I had like,
You were 13.
yeah, and embarrassingly, I had like, you remember those stupid like bum bags or whatever you call them, like the things you
Like
wore.
fanny packs?
right?
Fanny
Yeah,
pack. Yeah.
You call it in the UK, you call them a bum bag.
Okay.
I had one of those on, which is embarrassing to say, but so
Do you have pictures from this time in your life?
I may somewhere actually. I think I have some of me in Disney World with that on. But, so I was like, I don't know what to do. So I did have some money, and I like pulled out a couple of bills, $2 to this guy, and he was just like,
He's carried 13 bags. Who knows how far?
right.
And the 13-year-old's giving him $2.
Right. Yeah. And he just got really pissed, and he like started to storm off. And my dad chased me down. I was like, whoa, what's wrong? And he's like, I carried 13 bags, sir, or something.
Yeah.
And he's like,
Can you give me at least $1 per bag?
right.
Yeah.
And then he's like, so what do you normally tip? And he's like, you usually get like $1 a bag. Is literally what he said.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. I don't know how much he gave him, but he gave him enough to like have him not storm away unhappy.
Oh.
But I was like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
It's like, gave the guy some money.
Good on your dad.
Because tipping is not really a thing in England for anything.
Right.
Like, not even your restaurant server. They're paid normal wages.
Yeah.
And they sometimes do, but it's like people would eat a 30, 40-pound meal and like maybe give a pound. Right.
Wow.
Yeah. There's no concept of percentage tipping. Though, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised that they are now, because I've always felt like since coming here, like the UK is sort of 15, 20 years behind the US on a lot of things.
I stupidly tipped in the UK a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah. They probably loved you.
Yeah, it's like American idiot.
Yeah.
All right, so you were in Orlando, but that wasn't very long.
No. And then, so when we came up to Huntsville, I remember getting off the plane in Huntsville. This guy we had less bags at this point. I don't know why. He carried like 3 bags, but I got like $6 out. I was like, here, please.
Please don't walk away, man.
Yeah. It's like, and then we were staying in an apartment that my dad's company had got for us for the first few months. And I just remember being super pissed because, me and my brother, houses were relatively small in England. So we were in a 2-bedroom flat in England before we came here, and we'd shared a bedroom. And one of the things about me going to America was like, I'm going to get my own room. Right, and we got into this apartment. It was a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm like, that's not what I signed up for.
America, everybody's supposed to have their own room in America.
Right.
What's going on?
So I was pissy about it, and then my dad gave me some leeway, and then after a lot of complaining, he was like, shut the fuck up. It's like, I'm not going to hear any more of this from you. You're ungrateful of a kid,
So how old were you at this time?
13.
13?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I had phases with my brother where I used to love being in the same room, and then I'd really want my own room.
Right.
But 13 sounds like that age where it's like I'm ready to have my own.
Right. It was.
Yeah.
So, was this what time of year was it when you came over?
It was late summer, early fall. And the only reason I remember that is because I was there in time for school. But I didn't start school for a while. Just ended up going in the middle, like a few weeks or a month into the school year.
So October-ish.
Well, no, Alabama starts school in like August.
Oh, okay,
so
it
it's
was
like
September.
Yeah.
And why'd you wait? Just because there was paperwork to do?
I actually don't know.
Yeah.
I think it was because I want to say it's because we wanted to know where we were going to live before starting school, because we started looking in one area of town that was supposed to be a pretty good school and spent a lot of time there, and then actually eventually ended up going to another part of town, which was also a really good school. In fact, I'm glad I ended up going there, so it was a really good high school.
Public or private?
Public.
Yeah.
It was a Blue Ribbon high school. It was really good, actually.
Yeah.
What was the transition like from, scuffing with, schoolyard fights and stuff to going to Alabama? Was it a different from the British school that you'd been going to?
Well, yeah. You have to remember, I was 13. I'd been going to an all-boys all-boys school in England where you had to wear the tie and the sweater. And then I'm 13-year-olds in high school, by the way. So I'm going to high school. It's integrated. You're not wearing uniforms. There's,
Wait, you say you were in high school as 13. Typical 13-year-olds are like in 7th or 8th grade.
7th grade, yeah.
Right.
But you're in high school because...
I think the way my parents tell it is they just thought that was what they should do. They made a mistake. They didn't really know, and they went to sign me up at the high school, and no one said anything like, you're not actually old enough to be in this class.
They didn't actually know the conversion.
Yeah, right.
So you were a freshman in high school at 13.
Yeah.
Oh, and one thing, years...
By the way, I think he's being humble right now, but we'll let that slide. I'm guessing they figured out that you're a really smart kid, and they just put you in 9th grade because you were a smart kid.
I mean, I was pretty smart, but I don't know if that actually factored into the thinking or not. Maybe.
It was a conversion problem.
Yeah. Also, the in England, they have the year numbers, and year 9 is 8th grade. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's another thing. That could have just been that, because we started at 4 in school, whereas first grade here sometimes doesn't start till 5 or 6.
Right.
So I don't know. Yeah, I think I had just finished 8th year, actually, now that I think about it.
8th year, which corresponds to 7th grade in America, but then you come to America and you're
so
like,
9th year,
9.
like going to 9th grade,
9th grade.
sure. It's probably what it was, to be honest. But
was it? What was the adjustment like? Just being brand new, and also being from Ireland, to all the other kids in the high school.
It was a little tough at first, to be honest. Just it didn't mainly. I mean, back then I was still relatively small, so I was this 13-year-old. Like there's 14 to 18-year-old kids around.
Yeah.
Not to mention the whole thing. I'd been to an old boys' school, so being around
young ladies.
15 to 18-year-old women.
Yeah.
And who, no school uniform either. It was a bit of a change.
Yeah.
I imagine the dress code requirements were different. Yeah.
It was a little stricter back then. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah. But it wasn't that easy. Just it was a little bit of being a little bit of an outsider, and not. And it wasn't that people were unfriendly. It just didn't really know how to fit in.
And your accent was pretty strong, right? And
yeah.
you sounded very different than a kid from Alabama.
Yeah, it's very strong Sussex accent at that point, which people liked it, and they were like, "Oh, speak some more, like do this." But I think just being younger than everyone was a little tough at first. But I think by the time my sophomore year rolled around, that sort of just washed away. It wasn't a problem after
Nice.
that. So
Did you play sports in high school?
I did. Yeah, I played soccer. Started my freshman year on the varsity team.
Nice, because you were from England. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Alabama had introduced soccer for the first time maybe in the 80s, I'm guessing.
probably. But yeah, that was fun. Soccer in high school. Like, we weren't very good my freshman year, but we went to state my sophomore year. We were lost in the semis to the local Birmingham Catholic High School, who had all the good players. They ended up winning it, so I tell myself we were the second best team. But
Must be. When you first showed up to play soccer or football,
Let's call it soccer.
let's call it soccer.
Yeah.
Were most of the kids like scrubs? Were you like, oh wow?
well, it's interesting you say that, because my first experience of soccer in the U.S. was I went to play AYSO, which is Alabama Youth Soccer Organization.
Yep.
And I went out there, and I mean, being as humble as I can, I was like, I was just like walking through people and scoring goals at will. And I'm like, I know the U.S. is not very good at soccer, but like,
Still, to this day.
Yeah.
it's like, this is, I would literally score at will in most of my games, but I was also get frustrated because I'd be doing things like I'd be tackling people, and the referees didn't know the rules in there, but I'd be getting called for fouls. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? That was perfect.
That doesn't seem right to me.
Right. But that was AYSO, and I realized later that was just like rec league, right? And that was the reason why it was like so easy. And then eventually getting into the high school team, like, oh, yeah, people actually do know how to play soccer here. And then later I ended up playing club, and I was on a really good club team, but there were definitely people in town who were just as good, if not better, than you at that point. So,
Yeah. What did you do? I'm sorry. What did your dad do? What was his?
So he was a civil engineer by training. So he came, that's why he started off working on roads, because he'd learned about like designing them and stuff in school. So he went to work for a company called Undergrad, which does a lot of mapping and infrastructure design. Apparently, I remember going around the offices and seeing things like the Georgia Dome up there. Is that what it was? Before they did the Mercedes thing?
Yeah, that's right, Georgia Dome.
I think they
Which
designed
was
that.
considered a pretty amazing stadium. Yeah.
So they just did infrastructure stuff like that. So that's what he came over to do. But he's been working in IT now for almost 20 years for another company. So
Is he still working?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, because he's what, around 60-ish?
He'll be 60 next month.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Did your mom stay and take care of the kids, or find employment?
She stayed at home for a while. She was an accountant by training, so she was an accountant back in England, and she found like a lot of her certifications just didn't transfer here. Like the accounting rules, like you got to have this certification. So she didn't work for a while, but I don't know how long it's been. It could be 10, 15 years now, but she is a tax advisor. She works at H&R Block now. So,
Nice.
she's been doing that for a while.
Must be wildly different from England to here.
All right. So how old were you when you went to college, Jamie?
17.
And that's because of the conversion.
Yeah, because I
Mistake.
just graduated early. Yeah, I mean, just graduated at 17 because I'd started at 13.
And you went to University of Alabama, Birmingham.
Yes, I did.
And what was that like?
It was interesting. It's back then, I think they're better now, but it was very like an inner city campus. It was in the middle of Birmingham.
Yeah.
Didn't really have any areas that are obviously university campus. It was more of a collection of buildings.
Kind of like VCU here.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
Yeah.
though not as nice as VCU, I would say.
Really?
Yeah, back then anyway. I think they're better now. They've actually, I know recently they've closed some of the roads down and actually made a quad-like thing. So there's sort of like a little bit of a semblance of a real campus, which I don't actually know if VCU. Well, they do. They have some of that. Some of the roads down there,
They're trying.
a little bit are blocked off.
Yeah, they're trying.
Where's the Alabama, like the football?
Tuscaloosa.
Is that close to Birmingham at all?
Yeah, it's like 45 minutes down the interstate to the west.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
my sister went there.
Nice.
Why'd you go to UAB?
Scholarship money.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the cheaper of the options.
Did you get a full ride?
I got all my tuition. Yeah.
Okay. For what? For what? Why'd you get a scholarship?
I just think because I had high SAT scores, I think.
Were you really good in math?
Yes, I was.
Was it this high school period in Alabama where you discovered that you were really good at math, or that you loved math, or both?
I'd always been pretty good at it, to be honest. Though it was, I think going in Alabama, like I think the teaching style there actually worked better for me than it had in England. Also, jumping ahead that year, I think made me have to catch up on a lot of stuff.
All right.
Yeah, the teaching style in England I had was kind of weird. I don't think it was really that useful. So coming to high school helped for that. And I do remember though, like counting that they were doing this long division thing in my algebra class, and you do it a completely different way in America than we do at home. We do it. It's much longer here. I guess that's why they call it long division. We know a shorter way.
Which seems like the way to go. You're going to get to the same destination.
I think it's similar to like you hear all this complaint about the Common Core math, and I've seen these videos of like how they actually do the multiplication. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? It's probably something like that. But I was struggling with long division. Like, I just don't understand what the hell's going on here. So, but I went and talked to my teacher. He helped me out with it, and that was the last time I really struggled with anything math related. So,
And how old were you then?
that would have been 13.
13, 14, yeah. All right, so you went to college when you were 17. How old were you when you got your undergrad degree, your bachelor's?
20.
You were 20. So is that like 2.5 years? 3 years?
On the calendar, it was 2.5. It was three school years.
Okay. All right, so it's quicker than I did it. How long did it take you to get your undergrad?
4.
Yeah, I was a solid 4.
Down to the wire.
My parents were very happy I did it in 4 because there was a period there where I scared them.
They were going to have another semester tuition.
Oh, no, my dad was very clear. He's like, if you go past 4, you're paying for it. You're on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 3 years undergrad, that's not every day that happens. And I know you have at least one advanced degree, but I think you have 2 advanced degrees.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get, is it a master's in math?
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to get the master's in math?
One year.
And how long does it normally take?
I think 2.
That seems ridiculous to me, Jamie.
Right. But a lot of it helped. The reason I was able to do that is I was actually taking a ton of master's classes as an undergrad. So.
Oh, so while you were finishing undergrad in 3 years, you were taking a ton of master's classes. You're very humble for a ridiculously talented mathematician.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so you're 21 when you get your master's.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you got your PhD?
20, just past 24.
All right.
Yeah.
And how long does it normally take?
I had heard it take like 7 years for a PhD.
Oh, including undergrad?
Or no, I mean, I think these days they might be trying to cull that down, but I had heard, I don't know. There was people in the program who had definitely taken that long.
Wow.
Like 7 years in the PhD.
So what's the usually with PhDs? There's something incredibly challenging. It takes you a long time to do. It in theory is complex. What did you have to do to culminate with a PhD? Was there a culminating moment as part of the PhD program?
Yeah, you essentially have to do an original piece of research that advances the area in the eyes of your peers or the people in that area, and then write a thesis on it that gets accepted. Then you have to defend that thesis. Excuse me.
You have water here too.
Oh, thank you.
Would we understand it if you attempted to describe it to us?
Well, it was in the area of topology and dynamical systems. Does that mean anything to you?
You and Daniel can have fun for the next few minutes.
No, I mean, but I'm wondering, like, at what point, like, what is it like walking around in the world knowing that you are, like, better at math than everybody?
I don't really think about it, to be honest. Especially since I don't really use any of the math that I, learned. I think that the most important thing it taught me, at least for my career, was just problem solving and looking at things from different varieties.
Do you apply like some of the stuff that you learned from math or anything like that to your real world life?
Nothing beyond calculus.
So what were you going to do with your PhD? And what was it in again? Or what was the focus area?
Topology and dynamical systems.
Sure. What were you going to do with that?
Given that I had all the kids, it's like I'm gonna get a job.
Yeah, let's back up.
Okay.
So you had just turned 24. You get your PhD in I just say math because I'm a simpleton. How many kids did you have?
3 when I got my PhD.
Jeez.
When I was 24, I wasn't thinking about children. You had 3 kids? Mm-hmm. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, looking back on it, it was...
Were you parenting a lot?
Yeah, we worked it out. When we, she was finishing her undergrad, we did a lot of trading off of, you're going to school now, I'm going to school now. And after a while, once you get into it, it doesn't seem that bad.
Yeah.
Like at first it can be a little intimidating, but once you do it,
Once you're in there and you have some momentum.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, doesn't seem that bad.
So you went the math route and you ended up with 3 degrees essentially in math because your undergrad, I assume, was in math.
Yeah.
It was so natural and so easy for you. Just like, I guess I'll follow the math curriculum.
Right, and I knew I wanted to get done quickly just because I did want to get out and get a job. I just thought, I don't know why I thought this at times, I'm not sure it's necessarily that true, but I thought having a PhD in math would make it easier to get a job.
Did it?
So I don't think it necessarily did, except for the fact that the job that I got, they would not have considered me for it if I did not have a PhD. So I ended up going to work for a consulting firm in New York. They also had a heavy arm in India. But basically everyone that worked there, it was either someone from India had gone to IIT, which is like their Ivy League kind of thing.
Yep.
We had people who had it. My first boss had a PhD from Yale. There's some Cornell grads. Like top level schools.
Right.
They didn't have anyone from UAB. In fact, but I honestly think if I didn't have a PhD, they wouldn't have talked to me. Now, I think plenty of other people would have done, but they did end up talking to me. I interviewed with them. I did really well. They gave me my first job, so that worked out.
So this entire time, Jamie, you do not sound like you're from England or Northern Ireland or Edinburgh or Alabama.
Yeah.
But you do say one word that I catch you occasionally saying.
Schedule?
Schedule. There it is.
Ooh.
That's the only one.
Yeah.
And mom tonight.
Mom.
Yeah.
And you can hear it in some vowel sounds, I think. Like my A's, like say water.
Mm-hmm. But then your R's are very American.
He's a linguist, by the way.
When you say started, I wouldn't call myself a linguist.
You studied linguists.
I did, yeah. And I got a double I'm just noticing it as a person with an American accent.
Right. Yeah, I don't hardly have any less. I think it comes through in some of my A's, but that's about it.
Okay.
And schedule.
And schedule.
Mom.
Schedule.
Why don't you say schedule? Because you hear schedule said by everybody around you.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think my dad pushed that when I was growing up. I think a lot of people in England actually say words Americanized because they watch a lot of American TV and movies. So a lot of people would say schedule.
And your dad wanted you to hold on to schedule.
Yeah, but this is when I was in England. He'd be like, "No, it's schedule." Right, and so it really stuck with me. And so I think I used to say schedule too until he corrected me, and now I'm.
And now something bad will happen if you say schedule. Right. Very cool. So you and I should never compete in a math competition. I knew that a long time ago. Like, I don't even know how to have a math conversation with you, actually, other than us just talking about you getting degree upon degree. Mm-hmm. But you're huge, and it's the reason I corrected Daniel earlier when you said, I think you said football, meaning soccer.
Yes, yes.
Because I knew we were going to get to football. Jamie and I are in the same fantasy football league.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and I'm doing fairly well.
Yes.
Your team is solid. You're middle of the pack, and if you
I'm one game behind him, and he beat me by 0.7 points.
Well, when you say one game, you're really 2 games behind me.
If you had beaten me, you had the tiebreaker.
If you had beaten me, you'd be 1 game behind me. What's your record right now, Jamie?
No, it's 5-4. You're 6-3.
I'm 7-2.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I must be confusing you with someone else then.
So if you had beat me, I'd be 6-3.
Okay.
And you'd be 5-4.
All right.
Right? There's a lot of numbers going around right now.
Well, but they aren't big numbers, so I can still hang it. So
it doesn't matter to the playoffs.
Jamie, you and I play. That's right. But it's still fun as we're going through it. Jamie and I played a couple Sundays ago, right? Yeah. And
played. What do you mean played?
All right. Do we have to explain fantasy football to you?
Oh, okay. Like your fantasy team and his fantasy team went up against each other.
Which is amazing when you say fantasy because it sounds ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you just stop and think about fantasy football, like why are so many people playing this?
Yeah.
But it's fun to play, right? And Jamie, who grew up playing rugby, he did lots of things that were very European or very British, and now you are a big American football fan. And I'll just get this out of the way. I beat you by the equivalent across, 9 players? By 8 yards. 7 yards, sorry.
So
I beat him by 7 yards.
And I almost came.
Well, hold on. Let's have a little fun with this. I wasn't really paying attention because I knew my team had some tough matchups. Right. I had a couple of bye weeks that weren't helping me. I figured I was going to lose anyway. And so I wasn't watching my phone or watching the games very closely. Jamie, however, may have been having a different experience than I had.
No, I was because I knew I only needed. I think I had Fournette going Monday night.
He plays on my favorite team. Yeah,
right. And I think I only needed like 10.8 points from him or something. And he got close, getting closer and closer. In the fourth quarter, he got down and. It was like,
and I'm not watching the game. It's my favorite team. I'm not watching.
He got in with a 0.7 points. I'm like, okay, just I explained in the poll next day, like, well, they
he needed 8 yards, 7 or 8 yards.
He needed 8 yards. They gave him the ball on 3rd and 1. He got stuffed, and then they kicked the field goal or something, and then the ball went back to whoever they were playing. I'm like, they just need to get the ball back, and they were going to get the ball back. It was like 4th and 15, and Daniel Jones, who, if you know anything about football, he's been freaking terrible this year.
The Giants quarterback
was completely lost, running around in circles, backed up, and like last minute turned around and like almost closed his eyes and threw the ball to Sterling Shepard, or I think it was Sterling Shepard, like 8 yards short of the first down. Who made like 2 guys miss ridiculously on the first down. It's like, 'cause if they got the ball back, Fournette was going to get it, and they were just going to give it.
They were going to run it to him 3 times. Yeah,
right. Because it was too early to kneel, so they would have run. I would have got that go. And then, like, now that they got the first down, I needed them to score and tie the game. They were 8 points behind. They scored a touchdown, so they're going for a 2-point conversion. Daniel Jones, who I aforementioned, has been freaking terrible this year. His running back comes out in the flat, wide open. He looks at him. He's like, no, I'm not going to throw it. I'm going to look left. And then he comes back right. Okay, I'll throw it to him. By that time, someone had him.
There were like 7 guys next to him.
Covered him, and they knocked it away. But they called pass interference. I'm like, oh great,
really? We got another shot.
We got another shot to get it.
He's going through hell, by the way.
Right.
I'm not watching. I'm not watching the game anymore.
It's a roller coaster.
Yeah, and it would have been awful for me because if I'm about to lose by 2 yards, and I know I'm about to lose by 2 yards, that's an awful experience. And you probably were thinking the entire time, I have so many opportunities
to win this. And so, yeah, I thought with the pass interference, I get another chance to get this. I'll go to overtime. It goes to overtime. I'm definitely going to get my points.
Yeah.
And then the refs get together and talk about, we'll pick the flag up. And it's like, okay, game over. It's like, damn it.
And so instead of being 3 games behind me.
Instead of being 1, I'm now 2, I guess.
Oh. No, I'm 7-2, man. What are you?
5-4. So
you're 5-4.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. I thought you were 4-5.
Dang.
I wasn't even sure I was playing Jamie that week, and then we see each other at work.
He doesn't talk to you.
No. I don't know how you started the conversation, but he wanted to talk about the fantasy football game. I'm like, yeah, basically, I think I barely won. He's like, yeah, you barely won, and Monday night was excruciating.
Right.
It was a good time. But
So would you-
Jamie's really into American football.
That's cool. And so playing each other in fantasy football really just means watching the teams that are playing. And
We're
then
actually not playing.
racking up.
Yeah. You're not
player
doing
points.
anything. Yeah.
Okay.
We're sitting down and maybe counting some points.
So really,
Yeah.
it's the only thing that gets me interested in the NFL because I'd much rather watch college. If it wasn't for that, I'd probably ignore the NFL.
So let's talk about college. Are you an Alabama fan?
Huge Alabama fan.
And you have to be because you've spent some serious years in Alabama. And UAB has a football team, but they're not a dominant football team, right?
No, they're not. They even stopped their program for a couple of years.
Yeah,
Some
which is
people complain.
like who stops up
Right.
in Alabama in particular?
I don't know.
All right, so you're an Alabama fan and you love Nick Saban.
I mean, he's done wonders for the Alabama program. So what can I say?
Is there anybody in Alabama besides Auburn fans that don't like Nick Saban?
besides Auburn fans that don't like Nick Saban? I'm sure there are. I wouldn't know who they were though.
They'd be pretty unusual.
Right. Yeah.
So
There's
why
people that aren't interested in football, which there are some. A lot of people in the math department aren't interested in football. I don't know if that surprises you or not, but
It does not surprise me at all. So, why do you like American or college football versus pro football?
Well, growing up in Alabama, it was a big thing. Like, that when we just first moved to the U.S., sitting around on the weekends, I had nothing to do. Like, back then, I didn't even have a phone. You know how, like, I'm in high school, you don't have a phone. So, like, even if I did, probably no one would have talked to me anyway because it was awkward first year. But, so you're sitting there on a Saturday, you got nothing to do, and, you turn the TV on, it's like, well, there's Alabama football. So I spend my Saturdays watching Alabama football. And
What year was this?
This was 92.
Yeah. They just won a national championship.
No, they hadn't won it yet.
They were about to.
They were about to.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was the first year, and I think the first game I watched was Alabama Ole Miss. I remember it pretty vividly. Ole Miss had these fucking ugly uniforms. I think they still had the powder blue.
Really?
Yeah, it was just, powder blue helmets.
Yeah, okay.
It was bad. But it's like, and I loved rugby. I grew up, and I was like, I can get into this. And throughout the season, I really liked it. And then, obviously, that was a great season.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of games you had to listen to on the radio. Not all of them were televised back then.
Right. They are now.
Right, and then they were going up, 1 versus 2 against the Hurricanes in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, I remember that
Yeah.
game. Yeah.
And, multiple interceptions by Antonio Langham, and a good game.
Yeah, and who was the coach of Alabama back then?
Gene Stallings.
Stallings, yeah. Yeah. He wore that ridiculous jacket.
Red Jack, had this crimson jacket. He
Yeah.
always had it. He was one of the last coaches to really wear a suit kind of on the sideline.
Yeah. But you weren't over here when Bear Bryant was doing his thing.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I think he might have died by the time I got here.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I forget that I'm 10 years older than you, Jamie. Yeah.
Did you have any things from rugby that you would have liked to see in American football, or vice versa?
Yeah, I couldn't understand why they didn't pass the ball backwards more. I'm like, because, you've got...
You're like, it's so easy, guys.
Right, yeah. Well, you got a running back, say, running down the field and, 8 defenders conversion, and I'm like, there's a wide receiver right next to you. You just pitch that to him, he'll walk into the end zone. But they never do it.
Jamie, you and I start our own, it won't be NFL because it's too much money, but we start a secondary league, and we teach them how to play American football like it's rugby, and we'll kill everybody.
You think that would work?
Oh my God,
The
yes.
strategy now is a bunch of runners just try to push off the defenders and create a lane for the guy with the ball. Is that I see that happen a
Are
lot.
you asking rugby or football?
No, this is football.
He's
right
asking
now.
football, and we have to remember that he spent most of his life not living in America.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But usually there's a guy running with the ball, and then somebody's in front of him just stiff-arming
Right,
the defenders
right.
that are trying to get him.
Yeah.
As opposed to making that V or whatever, that diagonal line like in rugby and passing it back.
Yeah,
Right.
time and space is very different in American football than it is in
Right.
rugby. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an offside line in rugby, too. The defenders kind of come up too soon. Right, so...
Where in American football, there's just immediate
Once the
head
ball
smashing.
snaps,
Yeah,
you're
everybody's just
gone.
trying to take everybody's head off.
Do you think it would work well if, let's say, a world championship team of rugby was just tasked with being retrained to learn football?
They'd have to get used to the pads, and it's conceptually a pretty different.
Yeah,
game.
I don't think you have people athletic enough to be wide receivers and cornerbacks in rugby. They're more like they're not. Don't get me wrong, they're great athletes and physical specimens, but they're just not. They're designed to run and do a lot of damage and whereas there's wide receivers that play American football that can never play rugby. They would get freaking destroyed because
they would last 3 minutes.
right.
Yeah.
So you have to have most players have to, pretty much every position these days have to have a bit of, even rugby though has changed a lot. Like when I grew up playing rugby, you'd have the forwards and the backs, and the forwards are like pretty much big fat guys that could take up space and rumble and hit. But nowadays it's just a lot more professional. I mean, a lot of sports are that way, but even the forwards are pretty much, they're still big bulky guys, but they're not.
They're a lot more athletic.
Yeah, they're not like big fat guys anymore. They're athletic and run. But I think the reason later on I realized the reason they don't pass the ball back is they don't practice it enough, but I think just the risk of turning the ball over is too great in football.
It's a big deal,
right?
Especially the way the clock is managed.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've seen how they do the end of game stuff where they start throwing it around. It's like they clearly don't know how to do this shit.
They have not been practicing that. No. Yeah.
It would be so cool, though. I do get excited whenever that happens.
Do the three of us want to start a team?
An NFL team.
Not NFL, like a semi-pro team.
Does that exist for football?
Oh yeah,
I've heard of the
leagues pop up all over the place.
XFL or something like that.
There was the USFL back in the day, XFL, but I'm talking about like even smaller than that, very regional sort of thing.
Huh.
Guys in their 20s that maybe played college ball but couldn't make the NFL, but they still want to play, and these little leagues will pop up all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about getting back into rugby because I know they have I think they have like an over 40s team, and I feel like I could still probably hang.
Yeah, you probably can. With the over 40 guys.
You could probably teach them a thing or two.
Probably. Well, especially since you're 41. There are probably some guys in their 50s that are playing that have no business being out there.
Probably.
Yeah.
But I probably want to start there because, the...
You don't want to go under 40 right away, Jimmy.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah.
I'm not in shape enough yet. But
you say, yeah. Like, do you have plans to play rugby?
I would like to, yeah. But I'm honestly, I feel like I pulled a groin like a year ago and it's still not fully healed.
Ooh.
So, I need to get in more shape before I do that. But I would like to try it again, I think.
You seem like a fellow that should play rugby again.
Yeah, I feel like I should.
Yeah.
Are you worried about the physical damage, though, from tackling or getting tackled?
Not until you mentioned it.
Well, no, I bring this up because I don't want to.
Now he's never going to play rugby again.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to be like being a party pooper, but I have heard that rugby players are, because you don't have the pads and the helmet, you don't turn your body into a weapon as much, and they're actually trained at how to tackle well without permanent injury.
Right. No, they absolutely are. Because you don't go around launching your head into people. In fact, it's illegal. But but the thing is, I think I played for years and years, and I never got, knock on wood, hurt once playing rugby. The worst I had was I tackled some massive guy under 12s. This guy was like 6'4". Tackled him
under 12s.
Yeah, this guy was massive.
Yeah.
I tackled him, and his boot came up and kicked me in the teeth. That was probably the worst, but it was fine. I was down for a second, shake it off and get up. Yeah. But never had anything with the head or.
Because you knew how to tackle,
right?
You were taught properly,
and there's probably technique with being tackled too, knowing how to fall and not post your arm or something like that.
Yeah.
So
knees, I've heard that knees can be bad in rugby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you should do it.
See, I was a back though, so if you're a forward, I think you do get a lot more kicks and knees to the head and stuff. I don't know if they play me at back anymore though. 'Cause if I go out and play, they're probably going to make me be one of those forwards. When I get in shape, I can be pretty fast, so I don't know. Maybe they'll let me play back.
Well, when you play again, I'm going to come watch you, Jerry.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why I wouldn't. That sounds amazing. I played rugby one time in a scrimmage. I had no idea what I was doing, and I thought it was American football. And I'm running like I'm pretty cool, and I just got hammered. that hurt more than I thought it should. Yeah, and I didn't come back.
You're like, this is a weird kind of football. People are kicking the ball down the field. So you're like, all right.
Yeah, there's a lot of backward tossing. I'm like, what are you doing? You have 5 children. You have a lovely wife. Tell us about your family.
So Elizabeth, my wife, we've been married. We'll be married 20 years next September.
Nice.
So planning. Well, we are planning a trip. Whether that will actually happen or not, with everything's going on, we'll see. We're planning on doing it. And the kids, 5 of them. Get the ages right this time because like I said, it does change.
But you are the dad. You should know this.
No, I know.
And you're a math guy.
It's just it changes so often. So I got Mackenzie, 22. She just graduated UAB.
Nice.
Right on.
Declan's at JMU. He's James Declan. We call him Declan. He likes to go by James now. So
Because Declan's very Irish and James is more.
It's a great name,
American.
yeah,
It's a very Irish name.
yeah. It is. He's a senior at JMU. Be graduating in May. And then Aislinn, who is she just graduated Tucker. She will be going to USC in January.
And let's be clear, that's not South Carolina.
No, that's the USC of Southern California.
Southern California, and I'm guessing it costs a couple more bucks than South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just a couple. Just a couple.
Out of state California schools sound really cheap.
Yeah. Speaking of which, they sent me an email saying I got to fill out this FAFSA thing. So
Oh, yeah, I did fill one of those
we'll
out.
see
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. And hers is an Irish name, Aislinn. We can call her Aislinn, though the proper Irish pronunciation is Aisling.
Okay. Why don't you call her Aisling?
Because we always decide we're going to call her Aislinn, and that's what she is.
Okay.
No, my grandmother, Granny Patsy, she's my only grandparent still alive. Knock on wood, I say that because unfortunately she's in a nursing home and did get COVID in the last week.
Oh, last week?
Yeah, just a few days ago. Though I checked with my mom today, she's still okay, not having any symptoms. Which, given she's 87, she smoked her whole life, she drank her whole life.
She sounds like a badass.
Like the fact, no, good for her.
Yeah, she lived her life. Yeah.
But she would always call her Aisling. Like she refused to call her Aislinn. So.
Nice.
She's grandma. Grandma
Yeah.
gets to do whatever they want.
Yeah, and she's our actress of the bunch. She's going to do dramatic arts, so she loves that stuff.
USC is a good place to
That's
go.
why she wants to go to LA. So.
Yeah, I get it.
And then we got Brendan. He's a sophomore at Deep Run. He's in the Math and Science Center. No, it's the Technology Center. My oldest son Declan went to the Math and Science Center when I was at Godwin.
Yeah.
But Brendan is super focused on his school. Like he looks like a mini me. When people see pictures of us, they're like, that's Jamie when he was that age.
Yeah.
And he's also like super into school and really good at math, really good at physics. Loves like Elon Musk and like knows everything about like SpaceX and all that stuff. Like he's really into that, and he can tell you about like planetary orbits and how the exit speed of like all this nerdy astrophysics stuff. And I'm like,
Says his PhD math dad.
right? Yeah, I know. And so I think that's what he wants to go to school to do. And then you got Cian. He's the youngest, another Irish name. They're all Irish. If you haven't picked up on that,
Irish.
haven't picked up on that yet. They're all Irish names. So.
I haven't heard of Daniel in the mix. So.
Right. So he just turned 13, and he's 8th grade. Quioccasin, so he's going to decide what he wants to do. And he's the one kid that plays football, like American football.
Nice.
In fact, he got his first touchdown just a couple of nights ago.
What position does he play?
Well, they're playing right now. They're not playing contact. They're playing
Flag, essentially.
Yeah, it's
a version of flag. Okay.
Yeah, but he's big, so he just made the cut. Like he turned 13, but he's actually on the under 12 team because the cut was like a few days
Based on
before
a
his
birthday. Yeah.
So he's big, like compared to the other kids. Like because he's almost as tall as me. He keeps saying, "Dad, am I taller than you yet?" I'm like, "No, you're not there yet, son. Soon, but you're not there yet." So he sort of plays like a tight end kind of, and he can just like it's like if you can just master catching the ball above your head like this, like, they can't defend you. Just
Yeah, nobody's deflecting the ball up there.
right.
Yeah.
But he got his first touchdown the other day, and so actually, Tracy's son plays on that team too.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Tracy Shoemaker.
Yeah.
Her son is Chase.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's 11. So he's maybe a year and a half younger. Yeah. It's a good time. So where was the last British Open played?
It was Portrush, right?
Portrush is in
Northern Ireland.
And for the first time ever or a really long time.
It was his first time in a really. They had since the Troubles. They hadn't had the British Open.
All right, so tell us the story of the British Open the last time, because I think he's the last winner, right? Or did somebody there another?
Shane Lowry,
Yeah.
They didn't have the British Open this year.
Yeah, so tell the story of Shane Lowry.
Oh yeah, so the British Open's in Northern Ireland for the first time, which I'm going to get really technical here. Northern Ireland is not part of Great Britain, so
Okay.
it's only part of the United Kingdom. It's the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, but so the British Open, because you can't really say United Kingdom Open. So they go to, I'm pretty sure it's Portrush, which is on the northern coast of Northern Ireland. Actually, really nice. The coast of Northern Ireland, like beautiful, by the way, if you get a chance to drive around the Antrim coast and got the Giant's Causeway up there, the Carrickfergus Rope Bridge. Portrush is. By the time you get to Portrush, you're almost in Ireland. You don't go too much further, you'd be in Ireland. But so they had the Open there for the first time in probably since the 50s, I think.
Yeah, a really long time.
And Shane Lowry, an Irish guy, won it. And then, so I remember the next day.
Every Irishman across the globe loved him winning that, right?
Oh yeah,
I mean, they
absolutely.
had to. And you still have family back there.
Yeah, I still have my uncles, aunts back
You
there.
showed me a picture of one of your uncles when Shane Lowry came into the pub he was in, right?
Yeah, so Shane Lowry went out and partied in some
Why wouldn't he?
local pub afterwards. And just lots of singing and dancing and drinking. And,
Nice.
and my uncle was there, and he sent me this video of like, oh look here, Shane Lowry. He's got the British Open.
The day
cup.
of, right?
Yeah.
It was the day of. Yeah.
He's like up on a table, like jostling it around the cup, and they're all drinking. And my uncle sent that to me, so I'm glad he got to enjoy that.
All right, so to help you so you don't get in trouble with your wife, talk to us more about your wife.
Elizabeth, yeah. So we met. You'll guess where Elizabeth and I met.
College.
I'm going to guess college.
UAB.
I need more detail than college.
okay.
Because we did leave.
Fraternity party.
No. Not a fraternity party.
Rugby tryouts.
No. Okay. You're never going to get this. So
Math class.
Yes, it's close. It's very close.
Nice.
She was not my student. I'll just say that right now. I was teaching math classes at like 18 at UAB. And the only reason I say that, so I remember one time, like after the final exam, the semester had ended, and they're like, Mr. Malaugh, or they probably didn't say Mr. Malaugh. They probably said something else.
Malaugh or whatever, yeah.
Like, do you want to come get a drink with us after now that the semester's over? And I'm like, I'm 19. Like, they're like, what? They're like, yeah, I'm sorry. Otherwise, it'd be great. Actually, I don't know if technically. Well, I think when the semester's over, it's probably okay.
Right.
But anyway, we didn't meet in math class, but I was a tutor in the math lab. And so she came into the math lab one day looking for help. And she got some help. And then the next day, she was there looking for more help. And then the next day, she was there looking for more help.
Wait a minute. So what you're saying is she was into Jamie, is what you're telling me.
Yeah. Until it literally got to one point where I would come in for my shift, and she'd be waiting like at my desk for her help.
Wow.
And at some point, my boss is like, "You're gonna have to start helping some other people." He literally did.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we met. We were both, I guess, probably. I was 18 or 19. I can't remember. Still pretty young.
Yeah.
Got married. A couple of years, 20. I think we were 21 at the time we got married.
Yeah. And several kids later.
Yeah.
Yeah, here you are.
And she is Kentuckian, I've heard.
She's Kentuckian. Yeah, she studied biology at UAB. I don't know if Paul knows. He might know this, but she's big into yoga. She loved yoga. She's been a yoga teacher for years. She had her own studio in Churchill for a little while.
She's a lovely lady.
Yeah,
she's very nice.
She's very nice. And she got her master's in biology at Villanova about 10 years ago, and now she is working in a VCU lab, a biology lab down at VCU.
So you're a father. You're married to her. Who is number one in the house?
What kind of question's that, Paul?
I mean, I know my number. I'm very aware of my number.
I'd say we do a good job of balancing that
So
out.
I don't think you understand the numbering system.
Yeah, clearly I don't. It's probably those ones where, I think I'm, but really I'm not.
Oh, man. That's good times.
I think we do a good job of balancing things out, especially now that Elizabeth's working and stuff. So it's like our responsibilities are fairly equally shared, I would say. Though I don't cook. I'm really bad at that.
You've tried and failed?
Yes. So this may not be a great story, but I'll tell it anyway. So the one time I really tried to cook something, I was actually baking. For Christmas, my mom got me a Jamie Oliver cookbook. This was 2005.
Is he the naked chef?
Yep.
Is he the naked chef?
Yeah.
I think he is. Yeah.
Jamie Oliver, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Is he Irish?
No, he's English.
Okay. You said that with some...
with some,
sounded a
with
little
some disdain.
disappointed.
Yeah. He's got me this book called Jamie Oliver's Italy, because I love Italian food. I'm big into Italian food. And there was, there's a section for meats, pastas, desserts. So I'm like, one day I'm going to make this dessert. And it had this recipe for dessert. It was like this cake that needed, or was it a pie? I don't really know.
Doesn't really matter.
No. But it's like you had to roll the dough. You had to get proper vanilla. You had to get the vanillas, open up the seeds, crush the seeds into the flour.
That's serious
Yes.
baking. Yeah.
So I did all this shit, and I made the
You're trying really hard.
yeah, I'm trying super hard. This pie case, right? And then I'm like, okay, time. Then the directions put it on the middle rack of the oven and cook it for 30 minutes. And so put it on the middle rack of the oven, 30 minutes. Come back 30 minutes later. And it was it had dripped through the rack. It was all over the bottom of the oven. I was like, and this took me hours to make the flour and the dough, right?
It's not what the picture looks like at all.
It's all over the bottom of the oven. I'm like, and honestly, it scarred me so much that I have not.
You're like, I will not spend more than 4 minutes making anything in the kitchen.
Right, no, it's I'm done.
Oh, man.
I still have that book up on my shelf.
Hey, seriously, at some point in the next couple of years, you need to try that recipe again, and we'll film the whole thing.
I should. Because it looked really good. You had to get grappa and all kinds of Italian things for it.
Man, that's awesome.
Oh, man.
Oh, it was a tart. That's what it was. It was a tart.
I imagine tarts are hard. They sound hard. Yeah.
And putting all that effort into making a big project and being this is going to be great, and then having it just dashed.
Yeah.
All right,
I was devastated.
You should be devastated. It sounds awful. All right, so I think we're dropping our standard question,
Sure.
or we're going to rotate.
We could rotate.
Do we have a question to rotate to?
Ooh, good question.
I'm going to start the question that we typically ask, and we'll leave it if you come up with a question to rotate to. Does that work?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Our
Go for it.
Our standard question that we're thinking about not dropping, but maybe not putting in the every time we talk to somebody rotation.
Yeah.
Jamie, you're 25. You have no children.
And no PhD.
Wait, this is a standard question?
Yeah, it is.
No PhD. Okay. Yeah.
Our guests don't all
We
have
tailor
PhDs.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. No kids, not married. You maybe went to school, maybe you didn't. You certainly don't have a PhD. Do you join? And this is a weird question for you because you've lived in several parts of, and I'm thrown off by the UK and Northern Ireland thing, and Alabama. But do you join the military, and you do that for a few years, or do you try stand-up comedy every week for 6 months?
Third option. There's one more option.
Oh, really?
Let's say
So this isn't the standard question.
join a. It's the standard question enhanced. Option 3 would be to join a monastery.
I can tell you, Jamie's not going for number 3.
Well, yeah. I mean, given my history, I think we can cross 3 off the list.
Have you not been listening the last hour and a half?
But thank you for putting that option out there.
You know what? I've been really thinking about not talking to anybody for a long time.
Thought I might help with the decision-making process.
Right.
This, by the way, this is our bridge to the rotation. The monastery.
We're going to rotate slowly, yeah.
Yeah.
So, if I was 25, no kids, not married, military or stand-up comedy?
That's right.
Yeah, so I think when I was 25, if I'm being honest about it, I think the military at that time probably would have sounded really hard. Like, they got to get up really early, you got to go for these runs. And
Says the math PhD rugby player.
yeah. Like, all this, just having someone, like, tell you what to do all the time. And you tell me if I'm wrong, because I don't know, I've not been in the military.
Yeah.
I only, from what I see on TV, you know.
It's not the same. Yeah.
Right. You bunks, you got to get up and shine your shoes with your toothbrush or whatever. But
That was true back in the 80s and 90s, for sure.
right.
Yeah.
Which is what, I guess I wouldn't have been 25 in the 90s, but I would have been somewhat close.
Yeah.
So given that background, I'm like, I don't know if I would have chosen that. Maybe try stand-up comedy. Though, to be honest, I don't think stand-up comedy I would have done too hot in that either. But
There's always the monastery, man.
Yeah, right.
saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look past the monastery.
It could be a Catholic one, or it could be a Buddhist one in
Right.
Southeast Asia.
given that I wouldn't want to go to the monastery now, that's what I said at 25. But now being 42 and looking back, if I, maybe the military would have been the way to go. Like, you learn a lot, you got camaraderie, and at 25, and now I know that chicks love men in uniform. So
it's weird, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would have played well, especially so you don't want to go to the monastery, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no monastery and chicks dig uniforms.
I don't know what that's like,
What do you mean?
getting digged by chicks.
It's not true.
Just kidding. Nah, the uniform effect. I've never had that. Unless you consider a Boy Scout uniform to have the
Yeah,
same
no,
effect.
I think it's
I don't know,
different.
Which I think, Boy Scout uniform is kind of...
Maybe
it's
not
different.
on the
Kind of on
right
par.
people. Maybe not on the right people. I don't know.
Yeah, we were not specific. That is a perfect way to bring this to a close. I think. Jamie, it was a lot of fun having you here. We really appreciate you joining us here, and
Well, I had a lot of fun too. Thank
yeah,
you for
that
having
was
me.
that was a great.
That's a good one. Yeah, good coda. All
All
right.
right, thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie.
Man.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to subscribe through whichever app you're using. To share your thoughts, head over to our website at podso1.io, and there you can comment on episodes or send us feedback directly. Thanks for listening.